Hello and welcome to another episode of Exploring Wexveres. A shorter one today, but we are going to be going over Planar Customs and how I built the Astral Sea in my world. Okay, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about how in Wexveres the planar system works. We're not going to be talking about individual planes. I'll cover kind of what they are, but I'm not going to be directly discussing sort of what they look like on each plane. That will come as they're explored or not explored throughout the campaign, and they deserve their own video each. So I'm going to really kind of just be covering the Astral Sea and specifically Planar Customs. And you know, Astral Sea is obviously a term used throughout D&D lore, and it's the term for which how the planes of existence are bound and kind of kept in place. It's basically space, but for planar energy, is my understanding of it. That could be completely wrong, but that is what my understanding. If you're a D&D nerd and you know, please do put it down in the comments. I would love to know an official definition. But anyway, so to get started then, the Astral Sea in Wexveres, what does that look like? Well, the Astral Sea is a vast ethereal expanse that connects all the planes of existence within Wexveres and beyond. It is a place of infinite space where the fabric of reality is thin and entities can travel between realms. This isn't something that most people do physically, it's more through like teleportation or portals or planar customs. However, there are some beings and some of our party members have gone through the Astral Sea and can travel it. Vartuto has done this several times, where we are in the campaign now, compared to where he is now. You'll see that in episodes to come. The sea itself is an endless void that's filled with drifting silver clouds, reflective stars, and islands that serve as the making of planes. It exists outside of the physical realm but connects all of reality, making it the primary medium for interplanar travel. The Astral Sea is both a place of beauty and danger, as its endless expanse can disorientate and threaten those who travel it without proper guidance. It's basically everything and nothing. Percy, the god of magic, has traversed it and done a lot of work in the Astral Sea, which will be talked about in another Exploring Wexveres video. But yeah, the Astral Sea, especially in this world, serves as the connecting threads from each of the planes. So, now we know that, I've talked a little bit about Planar Customs. Now you're probably wondering, what is Planar Customs? And it's basically the airport of the planes. Planar Customs is a highly regulated but deeply corrupt organisation operating as the primary authority over travel between the planes existing within the Astral Sea. The group oversees the passage of travellers and goods, ensuring that the movement between the infinite planes of existence does not disrupt or threaten the stability of the various realms. This white waiting room serves as a central hub for planar travellers, often referred to as the airport of the multiverse, as I said. So effectively, this is an organisation that governs over who can go where and which plane. They offer screenings, they check for anything that the planes don't want to get in, they care about crimes, intention, and they especially care if you are migrating to another plane. So as in Hell, the officers were asking questions that even though they were coming into the into the overworld, and that was their home, they were asking questions to try and work out exactly what their intentions were. So Regis was having a problem because his intention was to kill his dad, or it is his intention, and that does not fly because in Wexveres that would go against their laws. And as they are coming from Hell, there is every chance that they have become angrier and been affected by the plane. So it's the Planar Customs jobs to suss out whether that was initial intention or planar interference. Now, deeply corrupt. That's an interesting kind of part of my Planar Customs, is I wanted it to be a real kind of morally ambiguous group. They can be bribed, they can be bought, and they are owned, and they will carry out extra searches, or they'll stop people from travelling if planes don't want it. And they can really have some real impact over the overall planar economy and how that works, especially on planes like Hyantha, the water plane, or the Feywild, or Hell, where tourism and kind of travelling exists solely basically through Planar Customs. So corruption within Planar Customs, what does that look like? Well, while Planar Customs is the only widely recognised and officially sanctioned authority for interplanar traveller, it is known for its widespread corruption. Bribes and deals with smugglers, thieves, and shadow organisations make it easy for those with enough resources to bypass the organisation's regulations. The faction's leadership is often seen as morally bankrupt, prioritising wealth and power over the safety and security of the planes they are sworn to protect. Despite its faults, however, Planar Customs is the only organisation that maintains some level of structure and oversight in the Astral Sea, making it both a necessary evil and a central hub for interplanar movement. Talking of bribes, basically they will take any currency. It doesn't necessarily have to be overworld currency, because they can spend it whenever. They've got direct access to all of the planes, making them actually quite powerful beings, because they can get to wherever they need to go. They can threaten who they need to go. They can have control. They really have that power, and that is something that I thought was a really interesting dynamic. Now, kind of coming up with the idea for Planar Customs, I knew that there had to be some stringent regulations. And when parties came in, I wanted them to be able to kind of make it clear that this was something that had been in place for a long time. Vartuto rolled a history check and knew about them. They're a sanctioned organisation. The waiting room music was rather annoying, and they are a real thing that people and planar travellers know about. So what are their policies? Number one, their biggest one, non-interference with local planes. Planar Customs strictly enforces the policy that travellers must not engage in activities that could destabilise or cause harm to the planes they visit. This includes restricting the entry of foreign entities or forces that could upset the balance of a given realm, such as deities, powerful extraplanar creatures, or destructive magic. Violators face heavy penalties through enforcement, though enforcement is often inconsistent, and corruption within the organisation allows many to circumvent these rules with bribes or subterfuge. So it's a big one. Don't get involved with local planes. So making sure that if you're going into a new plane, don't disrupt that culture. Don't cause a problem. Just toe the line. And they need to make sure and ask questions to make sure that if you're migrating, that you're not going to disrupt. Number 2, truth serums and enforcement. Planar Customs employ truth serums and magical compulsion to ensure that travellers entering or leaving planes do so honestly and with the proper intent. Those travelling through the Astral Sea or between planes are often subjugated to interrogation via magic to ensure their intentions align with the organisation's policies. However, given the pervasive corruption, these measures are often used as extortion or manipulation rather than pure enforcement, with travellers sometimes forced to reveal way more than they originally intended or needed in exchange for smoother passage or passage at all. So this is effectively how they enforce and make sure they cast Zone of Truth, and they could check whether people have accepted to it, and effectively make sure that people are aligning and the questions are being asked, and that is the role of their officers and agents. However, corruption also makes this a tool that they can use to manipulate, extort, find information, especially of high-ranking officials. So if Planar Customs decided in the future they wanted to do something in a plane, potential plotline, then they would have a lot of means and a targeted way of doing it. And finally, their third rule, and one that a few of the party members broke, Vartuto, is the non-transfer of magical artifacts or entities. This is the most tightly regulated policy of Planar Customs, and is basically the reason for existence, and it's the prohibition of the transfer of magical artifacts between planes. This organisation enforces the law to prevent the spread of dangerous magical items that could unbalance the magical dynamics of various planes. Artifacts that are too powerful or dangerous are often confiscated, locked away, or destroyed, though there are rumours of underground black markets, of course, and these are within the Astral Sea. The transfer of artifacts is subject to intense scrutiny, and travellers are frequently required to submit to detailed searches. Now, entities are added on here because if you have a non-sentient entity with you, like a pet, then that is also considered a non-transferable item. So, for example, like Yogurt Boy was allowed because they bought them, but if they'd just taken it, then that would have been a real problem. And Planar Customs does not see sort of like non-sentient entities any differently than another object. So they'd see a dog, as just a dog, even though it still has thoughts, feelings, communication. They don't really care. If it's non-sentient and they can't easily talk to it, it's considered basically a magical artifact, but entities is part of the official law. So yeah, that's a little bit about Planar Customs. It's a really interesting organisation that I really enjoyed creating, because it ensures that planar travel isn't easy by any means. And getting an airport, you have to get a planar travel ticket, you have to be there for a reason, you have to wait in line, you have to have your luggage checked. It's basically an airport, and I thought that added a really fun dynamic to planar travel. Unfortunately, the party haven't explored that much, because there are unofficial means of traversing the planes via teleportation, pocket planes, pre-owned portals like Kianthar, for example. In the bottom of several of Javier's oceans are portals to Kianthar. If you go through there, you're not going to go through Planar Customs. So there are a lot of other ways through it, but most portals are sanctioned by Planar Customs, and if they're not, Planar Customs will work very hard to make sure they are. So they do their job in that sense. So they're a really interesting organisation, and effectively the party kind of interact with them in this part of the journey, but they're really relevant to making sure that you've got that layer of authority or people. It's the first real introduction to the party as well, of beings that are more powerful and very different to gods. Like Planar Customs have some jurisdiction over gods. If the gods are traveling through planes, they have to go through Planar Customs. That's sort of their power level. And there are other beings in the Echoverse that have that kind of power, and that this was a very easy way of introducing that idea to the party, so that they are aware that there are governing bodies, there are groups operating behind the scenes, and I thought that was a really great way of doing it. So, bringing the Astral Sea and governing factions into your world, what does that look like? Alright, so you are sitting down and you're like, I want a new plane system. I like the Forgotten Realms plane system, but I want my own. How could I do that? How could I be creative with it? Well, firstly, you need to decide what the Astral Sea looks like. You don't even have to call it that. It could just be the sea, or the expanse, or the void. It doesn't have to be the Astral Sea. I just really liked that idea. And you need to work out how planar travel works for you. So for me, portals and planar customs was the way, and there's sanctioned and non-sanctioned ways of getting to a plane, and there are even some planes that are completely shut off from traversal, such as the Plane of Shadows, and also the Isles of Castor in most sense. The Igfield was kind of like that too, with small groups owning ways of doing it. So yeah, effectively, I decided that I wanted some governance over it. That does not have to work for your world, and that is the other thing you have to consider, is this world where planar magic is rare? Can only the powerful mages really get to these other planes, or are there whole other worlds and planes, sort of like mine with the Feywild and Hell, that are ripe for storytelling and world building? So, but before you can get into the planes and what that looks like, you've got to work out, do planes work in that way? Are they like the layers of hell? Or are they in fact much more kind of like mine, where they're separated in this big void and connected by portal systems? How do people get there? By working that out, you can then start to piece together, okay, and how do I want that to be governed? Do I want governance at all? And I found that journey really interesting and also very helpful, because my first thought was, okay, so I know I want a hell, because the party are in hell right now, and I know that that needs to exist. Great. Do I want more planes? And I was like, yes, I want kind of an opposite, and I want the Feywild. Okay, cool. You've got the opposite, you've got the afterlives then, that came in and was created. And then I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I want some other planes that are like other worlds of existence. Like Hianthara, the water plane, is basically a collection of a little bit of land on top with one city, and then the rest of the plane is submerged beneath water. Or the caverns, where there's one city at the top, fully lived in by the Karansi, the faction which cares most about kind of strength and being the best, and they work in and live in the caverns, and going deeper into the caverns is really dangerous, and there's enemies, and it's basically like a dungeon crawler. And all these different ideas started to form in my head, and then I thought, I really want some planes that people just go to. and prepare the party that they are going to go to them. Like the Plane of Shadows, I've built that up. I was like, this is the worst of the worst. People don't go here and survive. So the level of danger, and each plane does have a danger level ranked by Planar Customs. So working out how you want your planes to operate. For you, all of those ideas, you might want to just implement them in your overworld. And that's so cool. And having kind of those different biomes and continents is absolutely okay. You can have the sea go really deep at some point, and you can have other ways. But I thought planes was a really nice way to keep the overworld very kind of static, in kind of, you have a bunch of continents, and on those continents are different cultures and cities and mortal kind. And then the really cool kind of fantasy elements of my world all exist in the planes. Like the Feywild and the demons are all very fantastical, and then you've got kind of more medieval and historically, I guess, kind of accurate to the past in the overworld. But the magic and all that kind of happens in other planes, besides Sertan and kind of Ildawn. So yeah, you've got to work out what you want from your planes and how you want that to work with your party. Do you want your party to explore each and every plane? Are you doing a planar traveling? In which case it's important that your planes are really creative and you know how people can get from plane to plane. Or are they going to be kind of something that you just discuss briefly with the party and kind of reference? And at that point, maybe this level of detail isn't needed. But it's always useful to have, I think. The more you understand about your world, the more your players will want to explore it and have the opportunity to explore really built out things. So yeah, just some questions to kind of think about, kind of going into it when you're building your own planar system. Firstly, I'd say, how does the Astral Sea, or a version of it, connect everything? Does it exist? Second, where in the Astral Sea do planes sit? For me, they have physically little, like potholes in the Astral Sea that kind of harness the planar energy and build out. And little gems, Cristaris gems, are made out of the planar kind of boundary and energy. And Cristaris gems are what Vartuto hunts, and that really ties in his planar sort of master plotline into the wider story, because he has to go and collect planar energy. Third, do you want any kind of official transport system? Portals, teleportation spells, those sorts of things. Are they going through official channels, or any channel at all? Or are they just anyone's game? If you can do it, you can just do it. And either one works and makes for a really fun system. I chose governance this way, but also imagine the chaos of just kind of going through and doing it. Fourth, if you choose governance, what does that organisation look like? Are they just mortal dudes who have just come together and formed like a TVA kind of society from Marvel Loki? Or are they a collection of beings, and sort of like Mass Effect the Council, where they're a collection of beings who have been like, we need to have some kind of control over this, kind of like a UN style, like mortal overworld collaboration. So you could have some demons, you could have some fae, you could have whatever your planes are, you could have creatures and races from every avenue of that coming together to build out these customs, which is cool. Fifth, you need to decide how omnipresent is this organization. Do they have access to what people are doing? Do they have spies? Do they integrate, or are they just there to get people through? How are they getting their funding? That has yet to be explored in my world, but I know it. I'm not going to reveal it in this video because my party don't know it yet. In fact, maybe I will. Alright, so party, if you're watching and you don't want spoilers, and viewers, the same thing, Planar Customs effectively get their funding from beings in the Desolate. People who want an element of control over the planar travellers of this age. They want to know where people are going, especially certain people of interest, and these certain people of interest are always allowed to get to where they need to go. That doesn't mean they're nefarious, that doesn't mean they're good, but they always get to just pass straight through. They're on a special list, and in return for that, these beings ensure that Planar Customs has a place in the future and in the Astral Sea. And the Desolate is something we will be exploring further, and if you know anything about the Desolate so far, there's nothing really there. Or is there? So yeah, a little bit of tidbit for you. But yeah, work out how they're funding. And that's just a few questions to kind of get your brain going, get that creativity flowing. I always find having some form of document is really useful for exploring that and kind of covering it. But yeah, I hope you found that helpful. It's only a shorter video today as we kind of cover a planar system a little bit. I didn't want to go into the overall planes, but I will tell you what I have. So we have all of the afterlives of each of the gods. That's going to be an exploring Wexveres on its own, with Hela just going to Halvala. Then we have the caverns of Canthos, as I said. This is where there is the city where the Kranzai live, and that is called Renoxus, the hidden city. And then as you get down, the players would come across really scary and powerful demons, but also, or not demons like monsters, but also really powerful loot too. Then we have the Desolate, as I was talking about. It's a plane of nothing. You go there and there's nothing and there's no one. And you could walk for miles and miles and you'd find nothing. And you would probably get lost and die. That is how empty it is. It's just desert, sand, and definitely no super powerful beings. Then we've got the Feywild, which we've talked a lot about, and this will definitely get its own exploring Wexveres when the time is right. Governed by Archfey, and after they were kicked out of Olenfell in Halvier, they created their own plane, and it's filled with chaos, and it's a lot of fun, and I love it. Then we have Hell, which we've obviously talked about and discussed. Go watch that video if you are interested in that. And that is ruled by Drakos and his archdemons. We have Igfield's Eternal Frost. This is coming up quite a way in advance from now, episode-wise, but it does exist, and it's very dangerous. It's basically an eternal frost. Resting is impossible. Magic is also impossible to cast, or like teleportation magic, at least, and healing magic as well. It is a very deadly and dangerous place where magic is stunted, and it is ruled by the old god of nature, Igfield. He was going to be a very prominent character in the campaign. Then we have the elusive Isles of Caster, which is Vartuto's main goal, and that exists. It's a plane built up of different islands ruled by powerful archmages, and it's basically paradise for the magically gifted. They can practice what experiments they want. They've got huge libraries with vast tomes of information, and it's an awesome plane. But I don't want to go into too much. And this is also a plane that you do not get to via official means. The mages have shut themselves off from the official planar routes. Then we have Kianthar, which is the underwater plane. As I said, this is where there's one big city on top, and then there is a bunch of underwater places. The city is called Liliac City, and then there's a collection of caverns and underwater crystal deposits and all these cool stuff, reefs, and it's a really cool plane, and it's ruled by Sanguine and lizard people, which is awesome. And then finally we have the Plane of Shadows, which is effectively, don't go there, don't. It's 20, danger level is 20 out of 20, death is certain, it is shut off from all official transport routes, and it is incredibly dangerous. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to this quick video, or I say quick, but it's probably going to come in around 20 minutes now, about how my planar system works, Planar Customs, and for learning a little bit more about that. I hope you did enjoy it, and it gave you some questions to you DMs or aspiring world builders about how you build out a plane system. If it didn't, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know any more information you think was missing, what you want to see included, or the value that you got from it. And if you did get value, please make sure you like the video, share it with your friends and other world builders out there. I'd love to see kind of a community start to form around these and kind of tackle topics people want to see, rather than just kind of what ties in. But that'll only happen if you guys let me know. And as I said, always say, any feedback is really appreciated. Place it down in the comments, constructive, positive, whatever you feel. I'd love to hear it. But otherwise, I will let you go and enjoy the rest of your week. And thank you all very much for watching. And remember, it's your world.